Good evening. I am the Maven of the Eventide, and welcome to Vampire Reviews. Did you know that girls just want to have fun? Or is it blood? Yeah, girls just want to have blood. About 20 years ago, in Japan, a producer wanted to make an anime that was entirely original, not based on any pre-existing property. He asked a group of film students to submit ideas, and one of them was like, wait, I got it. Picture it. You've got a nubile teenage girl in a sailor suit, and you give her a samurai sword. You can't lose. And from that image spiraled the creation of Blood, the Last Vampire, who is also a vampire slayer. Because around the turn of the millennium, we were all about vampire slayers, especially ones who were also vampires. Her name's not actually Blood, it's Saya, and she is the last true original vampire.
She's the only remaining original.
What does that mean? Oh, the film never tells us. In fact, the film never tells us a lot of things. It's actually only 45 minutes long. Supposedly, it's part 2 of what was originally conceived as a 3-part OVA, but they were only able to produce the middle part and tried to make it stand on its own. It's super light on backstory, lore, plot, and character development is non-existent in favor of mood-setting visuals and fight scene after fight scene. But its random episode feeling didn't stop it from winning tons of awards at film festivals around the world. Most of them were for the animation itself, which is, well, look at it. It was Japan's first completely digitally animated film, critically acclaimed for artwork, aesthetics, atmosphere. But when it comes to the vampires, well, it definitely left the people wanting more. And is there more? So many unanswered questions left a whole lot of room for imagination and development. First, the missing parts of the story were provided in a follow-up manga and a couple video games. Then there were 2 anime series, alternate timeline spin-offs, and a whole slew of light novels, and also a live-action remake, but we'll get to that in a minute. We learn in the manga sequel that Saya's not an original vampire at all. That was just a lie the humans made up. She was actually developed by scientists as a weapon from vampire DNA to stop the other defective vampires that had gotten out of control due to their experimentation. And this is all supposed to be canon, but you get the feeling that they came up with a lot of these ideas for her backstory after the film was made, because it completely contradicts everything they were setting up. For the sake of our purposes here in exploring the deeper meaning of vampires, let's look at the film as its own entity and take it at its word that Saya is the last remaining actual vampire in the classic complex sense. And these creatures she's fighting are some perverted form of vampire that are just soulless monsters that must be destroyed. They call them chiropterans, which is just the taxonomical word for the bat order. You know, actual bats. This is not a real bat. They pose as humans until they reveal their true forms, and it's Saya's job to hunt them down and slash them up with her katana. These men in black-looking guys work for a mysterious agency that tells her where to find the chiropterans. Why is she working for them? We don't know. We don't know anything at all about her, really. She's mysterious and grumpy. The filmmakers credit Dracula and Buffy the Vampire Slayer as inspirations, but though she's a cute teenage girl, Saya has none of Buffy's fun personality or emotional depth. And she's quite lacking in any traditionally feminine qualities. She's much more like Blade, or at least who Blade pretends to be. She has no life outside of slaying, no personality dynamics, no friends, nothing and no one she cares about. She doesn't even seem to care that much about fighting vampires, but she does it anyway. She's just 100% badass 24/7, all while reluctantly wearing a fetishy schoolgirl uniform. But you see, there's a reason for the sailor suit uniform. It's totally part of the plot, because she has to pretend to be a high school student to find some vampires hiding in the school. Yeah. Even though none of the other students are wearing uniforms. It's crucial. Finding the vampires takes her about 5 minutes, but she keeps the uniform on the whole time anyway. Her handler sent her to an American school on a US military base in Japan during the Vietnam War. Everything is dark and gritty and brown and gray and bleak. And it's with this backdrop that Saya hacks and slashes her way through 45 minutes of screen time. And that's pretty much all there is to it. There's 3 vampires she's got to kill. She fights hard and kills them. Then at the end, presumably we'll move on to the next mission. A killing machine with no weaknesses. Because people can't be badass if they have feelings. No, okay. You know I prefer me some complex, sympathetic monsters, but of course there's a place for vampires who are not that. The problem here is that Saya's humanity is set up as what's supposed to differentiate her from the Corruptorants, and none of it comes through in the original film. Every single continuation and spin-off of her story gives her personality and feelings. And though none of them are great or anything, certainly none so loved as the original, the people who made them obviously realized that a character has to have depth and weaknesses in order to carry a story. The film does at least provide the school nurse as an emotional center, and she goes through a terrifying ordeal. Saya saves her life from the vampires pretending to be students, but says it's only because she's incapable of killing humans. The nurse survives the ensuing horror and is left afraid no one will ever believe her story after Saya disappears. How can she go back to her simple life now? She's learned that terrifying things exist she's never before imagined, and she can never view the world around her the same way again. Even if she never sees another vampire, she has a lifetime of nightmares and PTSD to look forward to. Her trauma is all too similar to the trauma of war in the real world. She witnesses 2 sides of a fight, both of them violent and merciless. One side is ostensibly good because it protects her, but at what cost? The good vampire versus bad vampire dynamic in this film reflects the Vietnam War, especially with the American backdrop, in consideration of how shattered and disillusioned Americans were in reaction to it compared to how they glorified World War II. Though both Saya and the Corruptorants are vampires, the Corruptorants are thoroughly dehumanized. Even before they transform, they are odd and alien in their human forms. They represent the monsters human soldiers in the real world were manipulated into viewing the opposite side as. Dehumanizing the enemy makes fighting them in a war tolerable, even though the soldiers must be murderers themselves in order to triumph. We can presume Saya's killing the vampires for the greater good of the world, but we actually have no idea what her true motivations are. When it's murderer versus murderer, what makes one side bad and the other good comes down to values. But on a philosophical level, moral values are entirely subjective, so yeah, it gets really dark. The film handles this whole war allegory with subtle finesse. It's in the gorgeously rendered scenery, the carefully controlled color palette, and works its way into the coils of your mind without blasting it through the speakers. The 2009 live-action remake movie, on the other hand, yeah, it runs with it. No pun intended.
You look around, you see an airbase run by Daddy, fighting his righteous war. But you don't see the real war. The one that's been going on since the beginning of time between your kind and mine.
What's war good for? Absolutely nothing when the real war is against man-eating vampire monsters. These petty, frivolous squabbles humans have amongst themselves are trivial and foolish in comparison, and why can't we all just get along? The live-action remake has a pretty bad reputation. It's got some cheesy dialogue and lazy acting, and the cheap, cartoony CGI looks laughably bad. Despite being based on a Japanese property, it was mostly made in Hong Kong by a producer of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and feels much more like a Chinese martial arts movie than anything else, with choppily edited fight scenes that go on way too long. But honestly, I kind of love it, especially compared to the anime. Don't stake me! A reviewer for Animerica called the anime a piece of superb animation, a pretty and gritty, sleek, dark, and sexy film that will make you forget its lack of story, depth, and character development. But I can't. This is a vampire review, and depth and character development are what we're all about here, and the live-action movie gives us that, especially with Saya. She still starts off dark and brooding and angry, but it's explained she's fighting vampires for a personal vendetta that reveals her deeper feelings and emotional vulnerabilities. And also, she makes a friend. The frumpy nurse character from the anime is replaced with a hot teenage girl character, because of course she is. But Alice and Saya develop a relationship that has emotional weight and provides most of the movie's stakes. And I am all about strong female friendships in vampire media. This is such a girl-focused movie. These girls overcome their fears and hang-ups to help each other, not just for the greater cause of saving humanity, but out of genuinely growing to respect and care for each other.
This is your war, not mine.
That's enough, Alice!
Anything I can do?
It's not your war. Go home. It's our war now.
Speaking of girl power, the film's antagonist is also an awesome badass lady. This is Onegin, who is the big boss of vampires, and Saya's been hunting her for centuries. Onegin killed Saya's father, a famed vampire slayer, when she was a baby, and Saya was raised by this guy, who trained her how to be a vampire slayer to follow in his footsteps. It's only around when he dies fighting Onegin's minions that Saya learns she's half vampire herself, accidentally eating her own boyfriend, and oh man, is she messed up about it.
You think the more demons you kill, the more human you become, don't you? How naive.
No matter how Saya struggles to fight her inner demons, she'll never not be caught between worlds. Her war will never not be a hard choice, but it's one she resolutely makes. After all, aren't we all fighting our inner monsters, choosing humanity over darkness every day despite our bloodlust? Just me? Of course, Onegin turns out to be Saya's mom, and in the final climactic battle, it's only thanks to Saya's power to make a human connection with Alice that Saya is able to defeat her. Her vampire side wasn't strong enough, but Saya's human emotional strength gives Alice the strength to do something dangerous she never realized she was capable of. The power of female friendship saves the day! Unlike the anime, where there were only 3 Corruptorin for Saya to defeat, the live-action film has tons and tons of disposable, meaningless vampire minions that just exist to be killed in the ridiculously overlong fight scenes. Where do these guys keep coming from? This city's gonna have no population left when she's done. But there's something to all this disposable action movie canon fodder when we think about the allegory. They represent the senseless, wanton destruction of war, both in their ravenous attacks on humans and how they are so thoroughly slaughtered in turn, as if they aren't real people with real feelings.
And the end is upon you, brought on by your self-deceiving godliness and your pretentious moral high ground.
In war, humans must dehumanize their enemies, delude themselves in order to stomach striving for victory, resulting in a wake of bitter disillusionment and trauma when it's all finished. This vampire gets it.
What you see has got nothing to do with what's real. You look around, you see an airbase run by Daddy, flying his B-52s to wipe out gook farmers in rice paddies, fighting his righteous war. We will come out the victors. Welcome to the other side of the looking glass. Now it's time.
Get it? Looking glass? 'Cause her name is Alice? This element mostly seems contrived so that the final battle can take place when the girls pass through into an alternate reality, like they've gone through a looking glass or back in time for some moody scenery while they fight. But it does fit with the way Saya feels caught between worlds, unable to truly exist in reality. Even when she presents as a student, she can't fit in. Her American classmates at the military base think she's a freak, not because she's a vampire, but because she's Japanese. And that cultural conflict is what matters. That dehumanization for the sake of pretentious moral high ground. The looking glass represents the false, deluded reality most humanity exists in every day, enjoying our lives, while the horrors of war go on in other parts of the world. Are going on. Right now, even, somewhere out there. Will we just stare at ourselves in the looking glass, or strive to see through it to the darkness on the other side? And if we did that, would we have to do something about it? After Onegin is defeated, Alice is sent home to the real world, while Saya is left behind. Despite learning the power of friendship and human connections, Saya still ends the movie alone, just like the anime. Because, after all, she's not human, and there is no true place she belongs. The tragic fate of the vampire. But does it have to be? Like the school nurse in the anime, Alice is left unable to be who she used to be at the end of her ordeal. She's seen the other side. She's been through war. Alice will never see the world the same way again. But unlike the anime, this time, there's an element of hope. Thanks to the bond they forged, Alice is not just a shell-shocked victim, but a stronger person who's grown up. And she believes Saya will make it.
She's out there, searching for a way back. From the other side of the looking glass.
And I want to think that she'll find it, that we can all find it, somehow. We can hope. I am the Maven of the Eventide, and, I think I need to go curl up with Funicular or something now. Thank you for watching my video. If you enjoy philosophical musings on vampires as metaphors for social issues and cute plushies, consider supporting me on Patreon. This review was requested by one of my Patreon patrons, so thank you so much. Help me make more of these videos. Until then, subscribe, comment, I love comments, like this video, follow me on Twitter and Facebook, and be one with the night.